now we are on time. When I clicked the button, there was still like 4 seconds to go, but I feel we can start 4 seconds early.
Yeah. And also because I'm not sure how much time this will take. I think I can swing this in a short amount of time, but it is one of those subjects that can sprawl quite easily.
Yeah, I might have a few questions on evals as well.
Good.
So, then it takes longer.
Because I also, I forgot we were doing LLM as a judge. And I was also preparing some other eval-y stuff.
Well, we can honestly, we do what we want to do. I mean, even if the description says we do LLM-as-Judge,
we are
can,
beholden to the description. People expect LLM-as-Judge.
We could change the description afterwards again, and like for everyone who is watching, maybe we're not talking about it. Let's see. And maybe before we start, because we announced today also our open source MCP gateway, so maybe that's a small shout out that we should do here.
Yeah.
We built a gateway that you can run locally, and you can connect your MCP servers or remote servers to it, and then it captures the traffic, so you see the data coming in and coming out from the gateway. And I think that's a really nice tool to play around with.
Yeah. Do you want to put something on the screen visually?
I can share my screen and see what's happening. It's a very, oh my God, it's a very scattered screen. Everyone gets everything. Let's see.
Because it looks quite nice. Oh yeah, you might want to. I don't know if you had any sensitive environment variables there, but we might want to.
Yeah. Oh, it's not gateways, it's gateway. Here we go. And then you get here your token to open the...
Oh, you should be able to command click that link, by the way. Hold command and click. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, perfect. And yeah, here are my configured MCP servers. You can get the logs from all, and yesterday I added the Cloudflare Radar MCP server, and then you can see the tool call it's doing. I think I asked Claude for the attack traffic. So it's calling a tool get attack or get L3 attack data, I think. Yeah, that's here. And then I also can see the result I'm getting in here as the answer. As you can see.
Little overflow bug. We should fix that. I think I don't know if did we document the fact that it can be an MCP server?
Yes, we did.
Okay, cool.
It should be in the, I will pull up the docs in a minute. But yeah, so it is a MC, I think there are a few ways how you would add your server. I think the first one would be, or the straightforward one is the UI. So using the web UI and add a server here. You can also go to our marketplace and see popular MCP servers. So you could also choose one from here. And for example, I added Neon. And then you don't have to authenticate here on the gateway level, but then once you connect with the client, so the client then obviously needs a different URL going through the gateway. And if you would connect here with that URL through the client, you would then prompt to the authentication. So depending how the authentication for Neon works, I think it will open the website and you would authorize it basically. But that's handled on the client side.
It's a pass-through. That's so I think the why of why does this thing exist? It has to do with typically you're developing a server, although you can attach whatever servers you want here, and then you go to use it in a client and something doesn't work as you expected, and it's annoying if you don't have a record of the data that was passed back and forth. So it's a non-invasive way to just like put up, attach a server to it, attach your client to the gateway URL, and then if anything's funky, you can just look at what was the payload in this tool call. And some people might ask, why don't you just use the inspector? Which is a good question. But in practice, and I've hit this bug several times, which is just clients do things differently than the inspector. And sometimes you're more interested in how an agent used the server than like making calls directly in an inspector, where it's, there's no randomness or AI involved. And that is actually a pretty good segue into the idea behind MCP evals, which is that you want to test in a client.
Yes. Should we just like quickly, because you mentioned it, if we go to the doc side,
Yes.
we have the gateway here documented, and you ask about the MCP gateway server. So you have those 3 ways to add a server. The one was the web UI that is here. The gateway also has the REST API that you can use, but also the gateway itself is an MCP server. So you have you can use the localhost gateway/MCP endpoint to connect to any AI agent, and then through the AI agent you can add servers, remove servers. You can search your records, and you also can list your servers. I think that are the 4 tools that we have available here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a meta level of like an MCP gateway being an MCP server itself.
Yeah, but it speaks to you want to debug what happened. Like, and this is the UI, that overflow bug kind of shows that, if you're truly inspecting like a nested payload or a JSON serialized payload inside of a text content message back from the server, then like just use the gateway's MCP server. Like attach that to your coding client and have it inspect the traffic that went through to try to debug what went wrong.
Yeah. Okay. And with that, I think we announced the gateway.
Woo!
We can move to the fact that we also, we want to capture the traffic, but then we also want to evaluate the tools and the different calls. And for that, we basically need not the inspector, but we need the behavior of an LLM. So, and there's also something coming really interesting, I think, this week from our side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sharing anymore, right?
Oh, you can share. Oh no, you're not sharing a screen. I thought you were
not sharing.
I was like, is that a secret? Yeah, I can share my screen with maybe some preamble.
Please share your environment variables as well, so I don't I was not prepared for it, so I'm like,
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. Yeah, that'd be an interesting feature from. I would just be like a very narrow feature, but just for streaming platforms, which is like, if you think you see sensitive secrets, and immediately block that part of the screen. Okay, so this is in our preview environment. Tomorrow it will go into production because there's still a couple of, like the overflow issue that we saw. There's a few odds and ends to sort through. But we have now a suite of features that help with evaluation of an MCP server, which I believe we've talked about MCP evals on previous Honc outs, but as a rough recap, why evals and why not just tests? Well, an eval is basically like your end-to-end test for your MCP server. It runs your MCP server inside of an agent. You get the output, so you give it some sort of prompt or history of messages, and then you basically say, what do I expect to happen inside an MCP client that is using my MCP server when I tell it to do something? And then you give it a score. And that score is not as straightforward as like a pass-fail from a code test. Sometimes there's a notion of partial success because we're dealing with the realm of like behavior, and behavior isn't always binary.
But for us, the scorer always includes like the tool that should have been called. That's correct, right? So?
Not well. Yes, it can.
It can.
But yeah, that's the cool and like domain-specific part of an MCP eval is you're really concerned with tool calls at the end of the day, or lack of tool calls. And as it gets more complex, so like there's a simple case of like, was this tool called? and we'll see that in one of these scenarios here. And that's simple to grade as a yes or no. But when you get into longer workflows that would compose several tool calls, or when you get into the example that I selected for today is going to be this first one called set status ambiguous. I should explain the MCP server. But when you get into the realm of behavior, that's when you will likely reach for LLM as a judge, or when it is difficult to programmatically evaluate all the tool calls that happened and account for every single scenario that could have happened. So to double click on that, what do I mean? Imagine you have several tools and you give the agent a task, and there's more than one way to accomplish the task with those tools. Say that the agent could call one thing several times, or it could call a different tool just one time, or it could like sequence a couple of other tool calls to get the right data and then call this other tool. In that case, having a programmatic score is really difficult because you have to account for all that information. Having an LLM as a judge allows you to put in some intelligence and say, here's everything that happened. Here's what I consider good, okay, and bad. Give us a score. And
can you show how you set it up so that we we get some what's it, like, data to our eyes from your talking points? I think that's
I think it's too abstract what I'm saying right now, so we should definitely do that.
It's not abstract, but I mean, it always helps, right? So it helps to see the code or to see the actual.
So to set it up a little bit, I ran one scenario here. So this is like the shape of the eval is you have the name of it is set status ambiguous. The input prompt that we pass the agent is just set my status. Oh, right. So this server that we're testing, I don't know if we've mentioned it before here, but it's green tea. We have not.
We have not. I don't think so. We haven't talked about green tea, but it's basically an MCP server that sets your working status on Slack. If you know Cafe, that's what we use at the moment. That's how your coworkers know where you work from, if you work today or if you don't. And I guess it's quite simple, like updating your Slack status for either the day or the full week.
Yeah.
And you're already in there. You already show the tools that you can use with green tea.
So I've authenticated with this server, and then it has 5 tools. All those tools are going to be attached to my account, and I can do something like set the work status for a given day. I can get my whole schedule, or I can look at my team's schedule. And so it limited surface area, but the whole idea is like keeping track of where you are when you're working, or if you're working, so that your team knows. So when we think of an eval, I just plopped one up, which was the prompt would be, you tell your MCP client, set my status. And what is supposed to happen when you do that? So in this case, I ran the eval just to see like what happens. So the way I configured it was I would score it that if set status was called, that's a pass, and if not, that's a fail. And so I ran it, and it failed. And then I looked at the transcript. So I saw no tools were called. That's why it failed. I look at the transcript, and it looks like what the agent said was, okay, I'd be happy to help you set your status. To do that, I need to know your location. And then you can optionally provide this other data. And that made me realize, like, oh, okay, you know what? That seems like the correct behavior, actually. So for this scenario, I don't want to score it as checking whether the set status tool was called. Instead, I would rather score it saying that I can get rid of this, a necessary follow-up question was asked. And I will tackle this in just a second. Okay, so where did that scorer come from? Necessary follow-up. It came from.
Why did you put the key and value for expected to null? Should it?
Oh, it's just unused. So expected yeah, we'll have to talk about this another time. This is like when you write a code scorer, so a TypeScript function instead of using an LLM-as-Judge, you can pass in data from expected. That's kind of like a reference point for the valuation. So you could pass in, yeah, I don't know what would work here. Like effectively, because we expect really nothing to happen except for an agent follow-up question. The expected column is not super useful right here. But yeah, that's just a way, like if you have a test, think of it like tests. Sometimes in tests, you have an expected value.
Yeah, okay. So if we would expect something different, we could like put it in here, right? So a value that might come back from the MCP server.
Yeah, expected won't really, I don't think we use it inside LLM-as-Judge scorers. So maybe we should remove it when there's an LLM-as-Judge scorer. But nevertheless, yeah. If I go here, this is our scorers page. So I open a new tab on the scorers page. I had created a scorer called necessary follow-up. It is an LLM-as-Judge. So just to show, when you create a scorer, it can either be code-based or LLM-based. And if it's an LLM-based, you give it a name, a system prompt that kind of primes it on what it's supposed to be judging. And then you give it scoring labels, which we will see in just a second. So this is like, well, I'll explain it when we look at this. So the LLM-as-Judge scorer here for checking whether or not an agent asks for missing info for calling a tool. The prompt says, you judge whether or not an agent appropriately asks for missing information instead of brazenly calling a tool while making assumptions. You should give a grade of A if the agent did not call a tool that required more information. And you should give a grade of F if the agent did call a tool while just assuming the intent of the user unnecessarily. So why? Yeah.
Oh, question, Brad.
Yes.
Would it tell us like that if the agent tries to call our tool without the necessary information, gives us then more information about the LLM that we are using or about our MCP server because maybe the tool is ambiguous or like the description is not good. So that's why the LLM is calling it.
Yeah. So wait, why the LLM? Yeah. So I think a good example of this is like the scenario should capture kind of the way you intend for your users to use the server. What I mean by that, okay, so a good example. Prisma, the database company, they have very solid tool descriptions that guide the agent on what to do when the instruction is underspecified. And so if someone uses their MCP server to create a new database, they have in the tool description to, I think, default to the US region. And so the agent typically doesn't ask a follow-up question and just creates a new database in the US region. But that is specifically prompted for. So that's something that then you could write an eval for, to make sure that that instruction from your description, that intended usage pattern, intended behavior pattern, is reflected in the MCP client. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So in terms of the client should not make up, oh, there I have no location. I now call, I don't know, Europe, Central Europe, and then the database in Central Europe is created. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like a vaguely contrived example of what we're going through today, but I think it's like it illustrates that LLM-as-Judge is supposed to look at like the behavior of what happened when a lot of different things could happen. And it's hard to programmatically say, did the agent ask a follow-up question? So just with code looking at the transcript, it's a lot easier to ask an LLM, hey, if you look at this transcript, did they ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, brief interlude on labels for anyone who has not seen LLM-as-Judge before. Well, question to you, Nella. Why wouldn't we just tell the LLM to give a score like 1 or 0?
I have no idea.
This is actually kind of a nuanced question. I'm
So
realizing as
you say we say the LLM, it should say A or F instead of
yeah,
1 and 0.
yeah.
Maybe
Uh,
because it would get confused which one is a good one and which one is a bad one. I don't know.
so kind of, yeah. So this becomes more relevant with when you have more choices, I suppose, or when you have like partial value choices. So if I had like A, B, C, D, F, and B was 0.8 and C was 0.6, when you're in that realm, it's a bit, yeah, more relevant because so LLMs, like this has been demonstrated in, I think, a lot of different papers. LLMs are, they have a bias to select certain numbers.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I think I read about it as well. Yeah.
So definitely, they're definitely like, I think there was something like they love giving a 7 or a 7 out of 10.
I mean,
With
yeah, maybe it's because of the data they use for being trained. Like 7 is the number that a lot of people like, I guess. And then it's somehow the data is biased about numbers.
yeah, so it's a probability machine. It's reflecting the training data, and yeah, I don't know. At any rate, it is far more effective as a judge if you invent some labels. You can call them whatever you want, and then you hide the score itself from them. Then you tell it what the labels mean, and then that is a much more straightforward way to have an LLM generate a score. Even though it's not straightforward, but it's a much more accurate way for an LLM to generate a score. So, with that, that's the anatomy of this scorer, and I don't think I've actually used it yet. So we're going to hope that preview is not broken. We're going to go back here, and we will click run on this scenario. So we're only selecting one scenario. Wait, did I properly edit this? I don't think I saved it. No, I did. Okay.
You did.
Sorry, okay. When we run, this will be gone in production momentarily until we fix it, but we do have the option to run it in code mode, which is a whole nother episode. But I did direct calls, and I did not mock the tool calls because I guess I could have, because we're not expecting a tool to be called. But yeah, there's more to say on that evals panel. But Nella is writing the docs as we speak.
Yes.
Ooh, low score.
Ooh,
Oh no. Okay, we
all
passed.
passed.
Whew.
Okay.
All right. Again, no tools, no tool calls were recorded. If we look at what happened, it's very similar transcript to before. And if we look at the scoring, oh, we should fix a little bit of, oh no, okay. Yeah. Visually, we can fix that a little. It looks like we got a score of A, or 1, and we can see the reasoning that the LLM gave for its score. So it says the user requested set my status, which is a vague command that lacks critical information needed to complete the action. Agent appropriately recognized that there is a required parameter that was not provided by the user, and instead of making assumptions, blah, 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 blah. So that is LLM as a judge in action. I don't know if I have much else to say about it than that.
Well, I do have some questions, Brad. Of
Yeah.
course, I came with questions because, of course, you can configure your own MCP servers, and I feel for evals it makes a lot of sense because if you build your own, you know the tools and the behavior best. But probably you could also write evals for remote servers, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. You could write evals for other servers.
Well, I mean, but would you say it makes sense to write evals for remote servers that you can't control, or where would you? I mean, you could probably get some information about the token usage as well and how good they are with your context management and stuff. But
yeah, but ultimately someone has to pay for the evals too. It's it's just us in this case. But yeah, I think it only, yeah, it depends, right? So if you are thinking of using an MCP server internally, or especially if you're a medium to large organization that wants to deploy deploy or encourage use of an MCP server. Evaluation would be a natural part of that, which is like, yes, I want people to use this for certain workflows, but we want to make sure that it actually works, given a certain set of prompts. So it could make sense in that world. I feel like that then maybe you want to smoke test it, or maybe you do like having a place where your scenarios are saved, and then you could kind of rerun them at any point in time to make sure that there aren't regressions, given the scenarios that you'll be using the server for. Then other part of this is, and we haven't implemented this on the remote, and we have kind of a hidden feature for it on the gateway, but if you expose the server through a gateway, technically speaking, you can control the tool descriptions, tool schema. Well, you wouldn't want to change the schema definitions, but you can sit at the entry point to the server, and also you could technically like kind of modify parts of the response, but that would be a little risky. And so you could pull those levers in response to the evals, and you could use evals for that purpose, which is like, oh, I think if I tweaked the description of this tool, then this server would work better. There's a lot of caveats to doing that. But theoretically, yeah, so you could write evals against a remote server for your own purposes, and then if it were going through a gateway, you could try to transform or modify certain definitions. But then, if they change the server, then what happens?
Yeah. So. Well, your gateway prompts that you put in there, or the changes probably will break.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's a good question, yeah. Well, I mean, there is something that we will release it to the world tomorrow, so people should keep an eye on our socials if you want to try it out. There's also the review part of an MCP server, which we haven't touched, which is also interesting.
Yeah.
But we talked about reviews, but you can also get a review, programmatically one from your MCP server in the console. But I think more to say on that maybe in the next episode. And we can talk more about this. Anything you like to add before we call it?
Well, I mean, we can do it again next week. The thing that I really liked, because I implemented it, was you can like it can get kind of annoying writing scorer code. So scorer or code. Yeah, code scorer code. So we have like a little way for you to generate the functions there. And so if you need to do something complex, like, oh, I actually want to score whether this tool was called with this parameter, and that parameter had a certain value, and then the response had this value, and that response value was taken and fed to a future tool call. Writing code for that can be just super annoying. And this thing is pretty good, I gotta say. I was shocked when I added it. I was like, I don't know how much context we can give it to make it write appropriate logic for this, but it was good. So I'm calling that out now in case anyone wants to try some more complex code-based evals. But yeah.
Nice. Maybe to close it, you've built this, or the team built this. Any annoying bug or scenario you came across when doing it? Like, was there some part of the console where we were like, oh, I don't know?
No, it's just like, we are well aware of the how do I put it? So like there's certain things that we don't do that we should and will do. I'll call out two of those. Will I? Yeah. Well, one is you should be able to tweak the environment in which the eval runs, which is to say, plug it into any sort of MCP client that simulates where you think your users will use the server. Working on that. And then the other is that we do take a naive approach to how scorers are attached to scenario runs. So what I mean by that is, I think in most like AI agent evaluation platforms, a scorer isn't so tightly coupled to the scenario. Like what I showed, we wrote a scenario and we put a score on it. In reality, although I haven't seen this necessarily for any of the servers we've looked at evaluating, in reality, you might want multiple scorers on one scenario for a specific like experiment that you're running. And so, well aware that that is kind of a limitation if you wanted to do get two different scores on a single scenario. So we're looking at that as well.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. With that, I would say we see us next week.
Yeah, there's 30 minutes. That's good. I don't know how we always do it.
Good.
Always do 30 minutes.
We always, and I end the stream.
Bye.